Nestled in the floodplains of the Congaree River, about 20 miles southeast of Columbia, South Carolina, is Congaree National Park. Although this national park seems small compared to some others, it is the largest remaining section of old-growth bottomland hardwood forest remaining in the southeastern U.S. Hey guys, it's Stoof from Travel SzN. Welcome back to our channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about our experience and things that we did on our one-day trip to Congaree National Park. I'm going to talk about changing conditions in this national park, and I'm going to mention some things that you could do that we missed out on during our one-day trip to this park. If you're new to our channel, please consider subscribing if you enjoy nature and travel-related content.
Welcome to Congaree National Park!
As I mentioned, Congaree National Park is one of the smaller national parks. It is actually the 6th smallest national park in the United States, with about 26,400 acres. Because this is a small park, you can see most of this national park in just one day. That being said, I recommend seeing this park more than once if you get the opportunity, because conditions in this park are constantly changing. Congaree National Park is a huge floodplain for the Congaree River and Cedar Creek. And when this area receives a lot of rain and the rivers begin to flood, this national park is going to look much different than it did on our trip, as we visited during the dry season where they didn't have any major rain events for several weeks leading up to our visit. Because conditions in the park are constantly changing, I recommend visiting the National Park Service website for Congaree before your visit and check on the alerts for the national park just to make sure that what you're planning on doing is actually open and that conditions are safe for you to be hiking around and kayaking and experiencing this national park. I also wanted to mention that Congaree National Park is one of the few pet-friendly national parks where leashed dogs are allowed on all of the trails in this park. Alright guys, now let's dive into our list of things to do at Congaree National Park in one day. The first thing I recommend doing is getting a kayak and kayaking on Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek is a beautiful, very tranquil, slow-moving creek that flows through Congaree National Park and then joins up with the Congaree River. We did not bring our own kayak with us. We chose to rent a kayak, and there are a few different companies that can do that for you in Columbia. We chose to rent a kayak from River Runner Outdoor Center. I believe it was about $60 for the whole day to rent the kayak. They open at 10 a.m. So as soon as they opened, I arrived there. I signed the waiver. They got the kayak out for me. They helped me put the kayak on my vehicle, strapped it down for me. And then we headed into Congaree National Park, where we took the kayak off of the vehicle, walked it over to the canoe landing on Cedar Creek, and began our kayaking experience. From this canoe landing, you can go west or east, southeast. I recommend taking it east-southeast, so when you get off at that landing, you are facing the river, you want to make a left to go east-southeast. We started the other direction at first, and there were quite a few branches and trunks of tree limbs in the way, so it just wasn't as smooth of a kayaking experience heading west. So I definitely recommend going east-southeast on your kayak or canoe. We saw several other kayaking groups out on the creek, so that's another option for you if you would like to do a group kayaking experience. I have a link for some group kayaking options in the description under this video. I also have a link for the River Runner Outdoor Center if you're interested in just doing what we did and renting your own kayak. While we were kayaking along the creek, we saw quite a few squirrels rummaging through the leaves and climbing up the trees. We saw a couple different types of birds. But other than that, it was very still, quiet, and calm. The river is very peaceful and reflects the cypress trees perfectly. It is so beautiful. And this was by far my favorite part of our day in Congaree National Park. I highly recommend getting out on the water with a kayak or canoe if you visit this national park. After we finished kayaking, we strapped the kayak back onto our vehicle and headed right back to that canoe landing where the trailhead begins for the King Snake Trail. The King Snake Trail is an out and back type trail that takes you through the forest. There are several little bridges that go over floodplains and swamp-like areas. It could take you out 7.6 miles where it connects with another trail in the park, or you could just go out for a little ways and turn around whenever you feel like it. That's what we did. As I mentioned earlier, we visited this park when conditions were very dry, so there wasn't any flooding or mud that we had to worry about, but that is something to take into consideration if you're planning to do this hike. If they get a rain event before you head out there, you may have some very muddy conditions on the trail, and the water level could rise up enough that you can't even see the trail, so keep that in mind before visiting this park. While we were on the King Snake Trail, we didn't get to see any king snakes, but we did get to see some other small fauna, including toads and a little brown snake. After wrapping up our kayaking and King Snake Trail hiking experience, we hopped back in the car and drove northwest to the Harry Hampton Visitor Center. Unfortunately, the government was shut down during our visit to this national park in October 2025, so the visitor center was closed. Outside the visitor center, though, they still had some signs with trail conditions and weather conditions, so that was nice that someone with the Park Service was still putting that information out there for visitors. If you get to visit this national park, I highly recommend going to the visitor center. It's a great place to learn more about the flora and fauna and history of the park, and it's a great spot to ask your ranger any questions you might have. The visitor center area also has running water for drinking water for both humans and pets. Just outside the visitor center, there also are restroom facilities with flush toilets if you need to use those. Right past this visitor center was the next thing we did on our list. This is one of the most popular things to do in this national park. It's the Boardwalk Loop Trail. The Boardwalk Loop Trail is a great way to experience Congaree National Park. There's a constructed elevated boardwalk, takes you through the forest and floodplains. As I'm creating this video near the end of 2025, this boardwalk trail is partly under construction. They're in the process of creating a higher elevation, so the boardwalk doesn't flood as often as it has in the past. When we did this hike, we were still able to do a portion of the boardwalk. Because it was partly closed, we did this section of the boardwalk that connected to the Sims Trail. The Sims Trail is just on the forest floor with a little bit of elevated boardwalk, so if there is flooding, you're probably not gonna be able to do the loop that we did here, but during dry conditions, we headed south on that Sims Trail until we made it to the Weston Lake overlook. That overlook has a nice boardwalk area, again with a platform overlooking Weston Lake. This is a great spot for looking for different bird species, maybe having a snack, reading a book, or just relaxing at this beautiful lake overlook. We then headed back up on the eastern section of the Boardwalk Loop Trail, and then we connected back over to the visitor center to complete our hike. The total hike was around 2 miles. It was relatively flat. The Boardwalk Loop Trail is wheelchair accessible. They actually loan out wheelchairs from the visitor center if you are in need of one. The final thing we did when visiting Congaree National Park in a day was to hike the Fork Swamp Trail. Located in the southeast section of the national park, this is a short loop trail. It's less than a mile, and it had a very eerie feeling when we did this trail. So I don't know if I recommend it. We pulled off of the main road, and it's a little side road that takes you down. It feels like a dark alleyway, like surrounded by shrubs and trees, to a small parking lot. We were the only ones parked there, and nobody was around. It was dead quiet other than the sound of like a car on the main road every now and then. So we started the hike, and it takes you along this small canal waterway, which is beautiful. The water is pretty still and calm, and it's very quiet, and you can see the cypress trees and other hardwood trees. We visited during autumn, so there were a lot of downed leaves that we could hear the crunching of under our feet as we walked, and it was getting closer to sunset time, so it was kind of gloomy and dimly lit. Just had a spooky feel. So we started the hike, and we made it about a third of the way, getting closer to half of the way around the loop. The trail was a little bit more overgrown. There were some weeds sticking out into the trail, some sticks and shrubs kind of in the path, and it was just so quiet, and we had this really spooky feeling. So we turned around and we didn't finish the loop. So if you're into that kind of thing, you might enjoy this hike. But for us, we had our 1-year-old baby with us, and we were like, I think we're just gonna turn around.
You shall not pass.
I think we're just gonna turn around and head back to the car. So that's what we did. So that was the last thing we did to wrap up our day in Congaree National Park. If you want to see the Congaree River, you could drive a little bit farther south from this Fork Swamp Trail, and there's a boat launch area to the Congaree River. But if you do have a boat and you want to get out on the Congaree River, that is a spot where you can do so. You also can see the Congaree River if you head into Columbia. There are several parks along the Congaree River on the western side of the town. As always, there are more things to do in this national park than I mentioned in this video, so if you are interested in seeing more of the backcountry, doing some longer hikes, there are several more hikes available in the park. Some of these hikes go to some champion trees, which are super old or super tall or have something very special about them. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, then you can take a longer hike to see some of these trees in the park. This park is also known for a special species of squirrel. The fox squirrel calls Congaree National Park home. When we visited the park, we didn't see any fox squirrels, but we did see signs that said Fox Squirrel Crossing. So keep an eye out for the fox squirrels if you're in Congaree. Other than that, we mostly saw gray squirrels, and we saw a lot of them in the fall. We also saw a decent amount of amphibians, and we saw that one little brown snake. So there is wildlife to see in this national park, although it's small. If you guys are visiting this national park, I'm going to say it again, check out the current conditions of the park before you head into the national park, as this park is a floodplain and the water levels can change within 10 feet in a matter of days. So your plans could be completely altered due to flooding conditions in the park. So make sure you check out those current conditions before visiting this national park. If you guys have questions about this park, you can leave a comment under this video and I'll answer to the best of my knowledge. Have a wonderful time in beautiful Congaree National Park. Thanks for watching this video and happy travels!